Well, welcome to our course entitled Growing Healthy. Can't tell you how excited I am to have you on board. And I'm believing and I've been praying that Jesus uses this content in a way that ultimately produces a health in your life. Whether you take this course and you binge it or you take it and digest it incrementally, I'm believing that Jesus is going to use it mightily. And so by way of beginning, I just want to let you know of where sort of this course is rooted in, the origin of it. It was about 15 years ago that my wife and I decided to purchase a home in Severn, Maryland. Those of you that are watching outside of the state, this is a very small sort of town, but nevertheless, it's a town in which our in-laws lived in, and so we decided we were going to move next door. So it was that we purchased this house that came with a sizable piece of property. At least to us, it was. It was about 2.5 acres. And the real excitement for my wife planning on moving in this house was not just that we would live next door to my in-laws, but it was also that she could get to fulfill a dream that she always had. And that dream is that she now could have a garden, and a big garden at that. This garden for her was going to produce zucchini and green peppers and radishes and cucumbers. She even eventually wanted to plant some corn. And so it was, as the season came that she got ready to plant this garden, she went out, got herself some gloves and got her cute little hat that she would wear and some gardening boots and all the seeds needed. She read books, she took a little YouTube tutorial, and she was ready. And so she planted those seeds and she watered the first day and the second day, and she got ready to reap a great big harvest. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to the end of the season for you, so as not to set you up for greater failure, because the harvest we reaped was dismal compared to our expectations. It was actually pretty pathetic. When it came to our harvest, that amounted to about 2 zucchini, a tomato that had merged with a green pepper, and a cucumber that was already a pickle. It was disgusting. And so we laughed, and we also tried to encourage ourselves that we'll do better next year. But what we realized in that season is that we had neglected some various ingredients that would lend itself to the health of that garden. We had thought that we focused on the majors, but we neglected some of the essential majors that ultimately would have led to a big reaping harvest, such as we planted that garden like right in front of an oak tree that had blocked the sun. Bad move. We didn't account for Ruth's schedule, that she was often obligated to be outside of the house, causing her to be inconsistent in the watering of that garden in between rains. We didn't factor in the fact that the soil that we toiled to get ready for that garden was by and large clay. And I didn't have in my budget the money needed for topsoils and fertilizers to compensate for it. And so we didn't reap very much. Why? Because the garden itself wasn't really healthy. I learned a valuable lesson in that season, not just one that applied to an aggregate culture and in the physical, but one also that applies to us directly when it comes to our spiritual. And that is that God has called you and I, and he sees us as a garden, that he wants to produce something through us, that he has plans and potentials that he's placed within us. And in many ways, what he wants to use our life for is to produce fruit for the world to see and to benefit from. And I think if you're anything like me, you aspire to produce these fruits, that there's something intrinsic within you that wants to be a fruit bearer. If you're watching this and you're wondering, well, what kind of fruits are you referring to, Sammy? Well, Paul outlines those fruits in his letter to the Galatians. He says that those fruits are love, joy, peace, kindness, patience, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. That ultimately what Paul was saying is when you're a healthy disciple that's following Jesus, these fruits are the byproduct of your health. And the world benefits from them. And in producing them, you glorify the God that created you. This is why Jesus, when preaching to his disciples in John 15, he said this. He said, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, Jesus says, my Father prunes it so that it becomes even more fruitful. Jesus continues on and he says this is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. In essence, what Jesus was saying is that I have a priority for your life. And the priority is that you are to bear fruit. I've created you to bear fruit. I've form-fit you and fashioned you individually to bear fruit. That becomes the clearest indication that you are my disciples. And when you bear fruit, it glorifies my Father in heaven. There's a Persian poet one time that said that there is a voice that needs no words. In essence, I believe that in many ways, this is exactly what Jesus was saying, is that when you're healthy and you're producing fruit from your lives, you don't even need to tell people that you're my disciples. They'll notice it by the fruit you bear. And so if you're anything like me, you can hear that and immediately you can respond with an aspiration to do that. And you can go, you know what? I'm going to produce fruit. I'm going to be a fruit bearer. I'm going to be more loving and kind and gentle and self-controlled. The problem is that when we do that, we wind up striving, we wind up working, and we wind up neglecting a very simple principle. And that is this, that fruit is the byproduct of health. That Jesus' priority for your life first is that you and I are healthy. Then, naturally, we become fruitful. And this is why growing healthy must be an essential to you and I as followers of Jesus. And so, in our time together, I want to talk about the ingredients that produce health that then naturally produce fruit. And so with no further ado, let's get started.